Hello, welcome to the Center for Urban History and the Lviv Garden. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bohdan and I work at the center as a public history project manager. And then my colleagues are Natalia. She manages oral history projects, and Oles, who works mainly with archival footages, and he is the head of the project Urban Media Archive. And after this film, we would be happy to discuss several issues which are related to this film that you've just seen. And you can also put us questions, since we are broadcasting from the YouTube channel, so you can also go on our Center for Urban History YouTube channel and you can ask us questions, and we have a person who will direct these questions to us. So let me start from the beginning. Oles, you mainly is responsible for the archive, and this piece, this film about tree is part of the archive of the Center for Urban History, but it's also kind of the archive of nature. Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Mm-hmm. Actually, we got this piece and this footage of this film like 3 years ago as a part of our Urban Media Archive, because we are mostly working with the private archives and also, as we call it, marginalized archives, which are not I don't know, some other institution not interested to work with such things. So we got the few films from this Ulyanivka village that were produced at this studio within the collective farm, and one of these pieces, it was like damaged and destroyed by the paint and by the lime. So, and when we are thinking about this material as a part of archive, that's the case, and also this film that we commissioned, it tells the story of the nature agency in the process of creating the archive. Because when we are thinking about the archives on this very general level, we are thinking about like the very, I don't know, general and global source of information, which consists of everything and have. But then when we are thinking more about archives, we are thinking that it is selected by the human, or the archive is selected by some institution. But as we see from this piece, like the nature takes a very active role and in constructing the archives, and also it can determine what has to be saved within the archive and what should be destroyed. Yeah, so nature is also very important actor in this process, not only the human.
Since we are talking during this festival a lot about nature and the agency of nature, I've followed several presentations and lectures today, and there are a lot of people who recall Bruno Latour and all the other scholars who talk about the agency of non-humans. And since Natalia is a sociologist, so please tell us something about this Latourian perspective, or maybe not Latourian perspective, whatever you feel. Who is the creator of such a story?
Ja, thank you, Bohdan. And liebe Gäste, noch einmal willkommen herzlich in unseren Lviv Garden. Dear guests, one more time, a warm welcome into our Lviv Garden. And I hope that while we are talking about the tree, we'll not foresee and overlook the forest behind the trees. And when I was preparing to this discussion, I once again was trapped in this false dichotomy between the nature and culture. And the protagonist of our story, who is a carver, and he performs an act of creation. Therefore, he changes the nature into the culture. But he seems to be the only actor and agent in the story because he acts with intention and with free will. However, later on, with this chemical damage to the tape, one more agent appeared there, which could be a nature, an actor. But what kind of act is there? We tend to see the action through motivation and causality. However, if we accept vector as a possible part of definition, therefore this definition becomes more inclusive. All fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetic, weak and strong interactions, all of them become part of this new game. Then how can we assess creativity through this new frame? Should we see the motion of a planet around the sun and the nuclear decline also as part of the creative acts as well? I think these questions are problematic in the terms that while we are talking about creativity, we look at the intention of the act of creation, which is very basic human stuff. And also it's part of this Christian tradition when we think about creation as intentional act of a God. But even looking back in time, when we think about nature, which is inhabited by gods and spirits, actually they possess the same emotions as people at that time. And now we still project our mental processes on the nature, trying to assess it, and saying that it's revenging on us, for instance, or it's creating sculptures out of the rocks because of the wind and water. And thus included into the ordered culture back there. But it is precisely our fears and our imaginations which did the job here. And I think that at some point of time we separated ourselves from the nature in order to get our own subjectivity and at the same time to get control over it. Aiming to tame and transform. And now we are trying to link ourselves back into this big picture, but still we need a certain degree of familiarity in order to get this link to the nature back. And one more time we are animating the nature. We are projecting ourselves into this picture in order to find this link. And I think it was exactly Stanislav Lem, one more famous Lviv-born writer, who generously described our basic inability to interact with other conscious being, which is conscious in a very different non-human way. There is also an irony that Solaris and Bruno Latour's Gaia are operating on the planetary scale. And one of my favorite writers, Peter Watts, who also described this first contact with extraterrestrial consciousness in his novel Blight Side. And for Watts, our biology in general, and specifically our the way of perception limits our understanding. And at last, even our bodies, human bodies, are very scaling principle for the universe, from architecture to calculations. However, I do believe that after Galileo's famous "and yet it moves," the nature cannot be stripped out of its subjectivity, even when we try to shape it according to our desires and use as a descriptive language the same as describes ourselves. I still believe that it is about action, because there is a connection between the matter and energy, and there is a vector there.
Oh my God!
Maybe
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll add on this also, like when we go back to our film and to the main character. So we know, like in his process of creation, he had the very intimate relationship with this wood, so which he's working. He told like the wood, it has its own soul, and also this wood, it's depending of which type of wood it is, like it dictates and determines the form. So he's thinking himself as like, I don't know, as an instrument in the hands of wood. So and it's his relations that he he has is kind of metaphysical, and it's very interesting, like, because it's his original voice. And when this guy from the 70s is talking about his relations with the nature, and how he's not the actor, he is just an instrument for the wood.
Yeah, that's it's very interesting perspective, since in the film you may assume that the actor, this guy who is carving something, kind of projects his human ideas, concepts, yes, on the tree or on nature, especially when he says something like, we underestimate the tree, it can be different, it has different characters, but then again he would then describe it in a practical way, so you can carve this or do that, and of course this is for the human being. But then I didn't think about this perspective, as you say, that then by itself a tree defines what he can do. And then interestingly, in this this is amateur film, so please don't consider it's like Will Morrison drama. It's a simple story, but still, I mean, at the end he carves birds, and then he groups birds in family. And then you have kind of this story where there is a continuous kind of relation, so between what Natalia said, like between these agencies of human and then tree, and then it goes back in both directions, like yes, back and
all
forth.
the time.
So yeah, you're carving from a tree something that then basically is human. I mean, these groups, like he says that you need to make a pair for a bird, since this should be a family.
Yeah, at this moment he's in the role of creator. Like when what creator do, he's like just like, I don't know, pairing the birds or other creatures.
Tell us more, because this was your argument about the horror film. So you said that actually by carving wood we do some horrific things in the streets.
Actually, when the idea to make this, it was like my joke, because when this idea came to show the film in the village and show the film for the trees, because like village is disappearing as like this image is disappearing on the film. So it was my joke that for the trees, which we are showing like this film for the trees, and for them it is horror, because like some guy just taking the piece of wood and trying to carve some other pieces from the trees. So probably is terrible stories from this perspective. But also when we are thinking about this village that is disappearing, it's the process when the nature is I don't know, strikes back, and then the role of technology, like technology work as a magnet for the people. The people go into the cities, to the other technological hubs, and then the nature in this village became like the main I don't know, gardener.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that actually we didn't just watch the film in the village. So the idea was it's a metaphor, but also it was a live performance. So we do believe that these trees have certain emotions and agency, and here I'm not alone. I mean, there was this famous book in the 70s about the consciousness of trees, but then in New Yorker there was this famous publication from 2013. I think it was called the Intelligent Plant, which showed a lot of evidences by scholars that trees have this very developed and highly structured, complicated system of fungal networks. So the roots of trees are full of fungi, and these fungal networks help trees to communicate. And there are scholarly evidences that trees inform each other, they can help each other, and they even can fight each other through these complicated networks which are not visible. And this is a very interesting story in general, that what we see is not the whole thing. It's like in this oida, in the ancient Greek Oedipus story, that we believe that what we see is reality, but then in the stories of trees, the reality is also beneath our sight. And scholars already developed this definition as wood wide web. It's also www, but wood wide web means that actually this network of trees is an informational system. And as Natalia said, since we normally project our human understanding, we may not say that trees have consciousness, but the evidences from the research show that trees have memory and they react, so we can assume they have feelings. And there is this big question whether it is possible actually to think without a brain. Because one of the big horrors in human culture is this decapitated body.
Or zombie, actually. Yes.
Or zombie. And then we come back to the zombie village. So the idea was that, we filmed the tree, the film tree, to trees in the village, which is about to disappear. 500 years of history, and probably in maybe one more 100 years there will be only trees in this village, and by this symbolic performance we tried maybe not to stop, but at least to kind of communicate this complicated interaction. And which is interestingly, I mean, the archive, what is the village archive in general? Is it a cemetery? In general, Natalia, what do you think? Can we say that the tree has a memory?
Well, I could reflect a bit on the tree as a living being, because we think about life in terms of protein forms, and therefore it's not a problem at all to think about tree as a living being. As well as a plant or a virus as well, which become a so important agent. And we are here talking now, and at the same time in so many different gardens all around the world, participating in one network of Ars Electronica because of one virus. At the same time, as you said, it's a very big problem for us to project this ability of understanding and thinking to something which does not have a brain. And once I read Shumylovych's interview about his novel City and the City, and there he admitted that his first idea was to write a novel about different special experience of different species, human and rats. And this statement actually was a very interesting exercise to think about different life forms in the city. And after rats and pigeons and cats, I immediately started to think about trees as also participant of urban life in our cities. And actually, I started to think, what does it mean for them to live in the city, not only to grow in the city? And do they need certain quality of life there? For instance, like fresh air, enough space, enough sun. Basically the same thing that Le Corbusier proposed for people. Actually, trees need the same things, but also nutrition and probably some level of safety, I guess, not to be killed by other trees or other humans. What about good music? Do trees need good music? And do they need to watch movies, as we showed them in Lopushna village? And, when Barcelona Opera reopened after the lockdown, and actually with a performance for more than 2,000 potted plants, I was a bit jealous. And I said, actually, trees need maybe some kind of entertainment as well. But also there is one book I would like to mention here about Michael Marder, about plant thinking, and which is kind of a bit different thinking that we get used to think about thinking, non-cognitive and non-ideational. Actually, we do not reflect a lot on plants and trees and their ontology, except especially in humanities, because I can still remember my botany classes and composition on inflorescence, etc., etc. But when we think about ontology of the plant, it is mainly saying in itself. We can study it, we can reflect a bit on the reaction of the plant, we can intersect them, we can make so many different experiments with growing trees, but still we cannot understand the epistemology behind this. It is basically impossible for us to understand what does it mean to be a tree. I think we have to live with this. But at the same time, thinking about trees and thinking about plants, it helps us a lot to overcome our anthropocentric biases. For instance, it also can give us a lot of good metaphors. I can recall Rhizome by Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, or History by Thomas Coveen. So we can learn a lot from the trees. We can learn a lot from the plants. They could be important art media and memory vessel, as you said. I don't know if trees have memory, but they still persist longer than human beings. And I think these notions of life, human, and tree could be summarized in the situation of the graveyard. Well, the dead body of a human is put into a coffin made out of a dead tree, both equal in their death. And at the same time, the tree could grow out of the land, and a human therefore continues somehow in this tree. Finally, both trees and humans are made of the stardust. So we are part of one big system, all interconnected.
Yeah, I do agree. And in this old Christian metaphor, you see the body into the earth and expect that it will grow again. So it's kind of this this famous Saint Peter. I think it was Saint Peter or Saint Paul. This statement about the seed, and it's just connected with the soul. But this metaphor is nice when so the humans can rather meet on equal rights a tree when he or she dies. So yeah, so we have like two dead corpses put in the same soil together in one coffin. Interestingly, let's talk a bit about historians, since we are the Center for Urban History. So history is also it's kind of about the graveyard. An archive is often kind of the cemetery.
Sorry for giving this metaphor.
Yeah, but when you also asked about the memory of the tree, so like thinking about memory, we think the memory is some kind of information, but information also it's like we have also the data, and which is like interpretation of data is the information. So and you can extract the data probably from everything, and also from the piece of wood you can extract the data, or you can read it, or you can read some kind of science from the tree, and then make it the information, make it as memory, because when we are counting the age of tree or something. And here I like to say also about the different speeds that we are living with the trees. They have in the nature at all, they have the process are going on different speeds. So sometimes we even it's impossible to to catch some cycles of life cycles by the human. Yeah, and when go back to the archive and as a cemetery, it's probably yes, it is, but it's also reinterpretation of this history and this memory.
And resurrection, somehow.
Yeah, we kind of with this digital turn, everything becomes data, and I feel this sort of regret that all the archives become digital, and these stories, similar to what you've seen in this film, like the film, the tape, which can interact with nature, and then nature can become a co-editor or the co-author of the film, is obsolete. So we don't have the situation anymore. You cannot dig in a hard disk into Earth and then expect that the digital film will be co-edited by nature. It will be destroyed by nature.
You can make it intentionally, but that happened unintentionally. And also we have the author, like the original this film amateur Viktor Kezema from Blahovichinske, who did this film. Then we have like the nature as a author of this film, and then we have like Oleksandr and Natalia Otrishchenko, who did this reinterpretation of this film, and it got the second life in archive, but also it got the new life as a film. So it's another film. So it was as you mentioned, resurrection in the archive, and also it's the kind of material biography of this film as a material and as a piece that we have here in the archive now.
And I think it's also a very interesting story of transformation between different medias. Not only this material medium which was digitized, and then maybe at some point of time we decided to make a video cassette with this film and buried it somewhere. And actually start the next spin in the circle of life of the story of a tree. So I think it has a very strong potential for our imagination and for our rethinking of different types of relationships that we have in between ourselves, in between medias, but also between us and nature. Whatever this nature might have an agency in the same terms as we use this agency for ourselves, or it is like something completely different. And I think it's great that it could be different, and I believe it is different.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Yet again, the story was about the peripheral settlement of humans, which we call village, and then a big city, which is full of technology. And so the story of relations between nature and technology, which is the subject of this year's Ars Electronica, we a bit tackled. But there is also a story that Ars Electronica proposed to discuss for this year, which is uncertainty. The whole year is a kind of, I hear it from whatever places on the globe. These voices say, "Oh, this was the weird year. This was the weird summer. Everything was a kind of weird," and people uncertain whether we can actually go back to normality.
But what normality is?
That's exactly the point. Can this story makes us human think more about these things, like what is normality and what is uncertainty? What do you think?
Well, like with all this situation, I started to thinking about this film. Now I have the ideas that like the trees are like the black boxes with like some kind of data, and as well as nature is still the black box that we don't understand completely. And we have the same situation this year with we have a lot of data about everything, about our our behavior, about about statistics and so on, but we still can't understand some kind of nature processes that are going on now. So, and probably like the huge believing in data, and like that the data will be something, and the big data will help us to understand this world and help us to rule this world. Now it's kind of I don't know. These arguments are not proved. So, and for the future, I think we are going like to do some new period of understanding and philosophy of knowledge when we will not believe in data at all, and we will like more how to say we will think about more subjective processes that are going on. It's like more on feelings and I don't know, some personal understanding of this process.
And I think we have to live on with this feeling of uncertainty, and it will be our new normality. I think continuing on what Oles has just said, we do believe in data, we do believe in science, and we hope that science will give us an answer. We are expecting the vaccine, we are expecting the cure to the COVID-19, and it gives us more hints in this maybe magical thinking that we expect that someone will come and solve our problems. And at the same time, I think we have to review our relations with the nature as well. And this very unique situation could be a shock procedure for us in order to develop other types of connections, as I said, and other types of relations to the nature, because I do not believe that nature easily takes back. It definitely needs time, and it definitely needs time to restore to the state before it was really destroyed by human presence. So maybe it's a chance for us, I hope.
Yeah, we since this broadcasting is coming from the Center for Urban History, one of the most problematic issues for us historians is actually how to give the voice to these non-human actors. I remember reading an article which was called like How to be a Cow in like 18th century, and whenever we think about history, we think about humans, and I hope we will learn how not to think as humans. Someday we will learn how to think as tree.
Or not.
Or not.
It's good to think as humans about other humans and about the nature as well.
We should say bye-bye since our time is running out, and we were happy that you watched our broadcasting, and please come again to our channel.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and big hugs. Ars Electronica.